Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In 1952, a woman named Jean Moyu worked quietly at the Translation Bureau. Her life appeared ordinary, carrying out her duties as a translator day after day. However, this seemingly ordinary translator held a shocking secret. She was none other than the last princess of the Qing Dynasty. Aizhen Zhoro Xianqi, the 17th daughter of the Qing Dynasty's Prince Su, Aizhen Zhoro Xianqi. Xianqi's story is not as unknown as that of many other royal family members. As a young girl, she lived in the glory and luxury of the Imperial palace. However, fate led her to endure a 15-year imprisonment. During those lonely and painful years, she deeply experienced the duality of power and glory. After this tremendous turning point in her life, she made a shocking decision: to change her name, bury her past glory and pain, and live a low-key, secret life. As years passed, she gradually faded from public view and ultimately spent her later years in a small town, living an ordinary life, until her peaceful passing in 2014. On the surface, this seemingly ordinary elderly woman lived a simple life, with no apparent connection to the royal family. However, unexpectedly, just before her death, she revealed a royal scandal that shocked the world. What was this scandal? According to historical records, in 1840, a British warship arrived at China's southern coast, with cannon fire that could be heard from miles away, marking the start of the Opium War. At the time, the Qing government followed a policy of self-imposed isolation, maintaining a conservative attitude toward foreign goods and influences, and was entirely unprepared for foreign challenges. In an effort to open up the Chinese market, Britain decided to resolve the dispute through force. During the early stages of the war, the Qing army still employed traditional tactics, while the British forces already had modern weapons and equipment. This put the Qing army at a clear disadvantage, and the situation quickly turned unfavorable. As the British Army continued to bombard coastal cities in Guangdong, they suffered serious destruction. Local officials and civilians were caught off guard by the sudden external threat. In Guangzhou, the once bustling market turned into a battlefield, with many shops closed and streets littered with goods and furniture, showing signs of hasty evacuation. As the war progressed northward, the Qing government's response remained slow and ineffective. The signing of the Treaty of Nanjing in 1842 marked the end of the war. The Qing government was forced to cede Hong Kong Island to Britain and open several ports for trade. This war not only caused the Qing dynasty to lose significant territory, but also stripped it of partial control over its customs, and most importantly, it shook the very foundation of the Qing dynasty's rule. Afterward, the Qing government attempted a series of reforms to revitalize the country. From the self-strengthening movement to the 100 Days Reform, these efforts aimed to introduce Western technology and management methods, establish modern schools, and develop industry, mining, and new military forces. However, due to strong opposition from conservatives and internal corruption within the government, the reforms failed to produce the desired effects. Entering the 20th century, the Qing dynasty once again faced both external challenges and internal crises. In 1900, the Boxer Rebellion broke out, followed by the invasion of the Eight-Nation Alliance, which exposed the Qing government's incompetence once again. The Qing dynasty was forced to sign more unequal treaties, paying massive war indemnities and losing more territory and sovereignty. These blows severely weakened the Qing dynasty's national strength and further intensified social unrest. As a result, the foundation of Qing rule was thoroughly shaken. The people and intellectuals began to search for new paths, with an increasing call for reform. This demand for change eventually led to the 1911 Xinhai Revolution. The success of the revolution marked the end of over 400 years of Qing rule and opened a new chapter in modern Chinese history. With the decline and eventual collapse of the Qing Dynasty, the lives of many royal family members underwent significant changes. The power, glory, and wealth they once enjoyed were lost with the fall of the dynasty. Many were forced to make difficult choices, letting go of their former identities and integrating into the lives of ordinary citizens. Aizen Joro Xianqi, who later changed her name to Jin Moyu, was one such person who experienced the transition from royalty to commoner. Born into a prestigious and magnificent royal family, Jin Moyu's childhood and youth were carefree, filled with honor and splendor. However, with the fall of the Qing dynasty, her life took a dramatic turn. The family wealth gradually dwindled, and the privileged life she once knew was replaced by the harsh realities of life. To cope with these difficulties, she made an extremely difficult decision, selling the house she had lived in for many years. For her, this house was not just a home, but a symbol of her past glory and memories. Yet, for the sake of survival, she had no choice but to part with it. Although the money she received from selling the house was not much, Jin Moyu decided to use her modest savings to start a new life. She chose to open a small laundry shop. This business had low costs, was stable, and was suitable for her to run on her own. While the scale of the laundry was small, it was enough to meet her basic living needs. Every morning, Jin Moyu woke up early to begin her day's work. She personally handled the clothes brought by customers, soaking, scrubbing, and drying them, each step requiring patience and meticulous care. This was a huge challenge for someone who had once lived a life of royal privilege, but she had no other choice. She never complained and silently accepted this change in her life. At night, when the work at the laundry was finally finished, Jin Moyu did not stop. To earn extra money, she would sit under the dim light of an oil lamp, pick up her needle and thread, and knit sweaters. These sweaters were very popular in the cold winters, and Jin Moyu often sold them to neighbors or set up a stall in the market. Although the income was modest, it became an important supplement to her livelihood. The process of knitting was long and tiring. Each stitch and thread required careful calculation to ensure that the sweaters were both warm and durable. Prolonged exposure to water and hard work made her hands rough, and her fingertips were often pricked by the needles, causing pain. Yet, she never voiced any complaints. She knew that all of this was necessary to sustain her basic living. In 1952, Jin Moyu's life took an unexpected turn. That year, her brother in Japan successfully overcame his long-standing opium addiction, which was undoubtedly a new beginning for him. After years of struggle, he had finally freed himself from the grip of opium and started to reorganize his life. He actively sought new directions and sources of income. Through persistent effort, he found a stable job in Japanese society, and his income gradually stabilized. After rebuilding his life, her brother, deeply empathizing with the hardships Jin Moyu had faced in China over the years, felt that he owed her a great deal. To show his gratitude and support, he decided to send her a sum of money. For Jin Moyu, this money was not just an unexpected form of assistance, but also the first substantial help her brother had been able to offer her after many years. In addition to the financial support, her brother also invited Jin Moyu to move to Japan and live with him, so he could take better care of her. Faced with his sincerity and help, Jin Moyu made a decision that surprised him. She chose to remain in China. Although she had relatives in Japan and the living conditions might have been more comfortable, Jin Moyu decided to stay in the country she knew, maintaining the way of life she had become accustomed to. At this time, she found a job at the Translation Bureau in Beijing. The main task of the Translation Bureau was to translate and organize foreign literature. A job that was not only stable but also aligned with her interests and professional background. However, in Jin Moyu's life, her past and identity remained inescapable, always casting a shadow over her. Although she never openly mentioned that she had once been a member of the Qing royal family, Her background and past left invisible traces around her. Particularly her experiences studying in Japan and later working at the Translation Bureau made her the subject of attention and suspicion among those around her. In her work at the Compilation Bureau, Jin Moyu often had to handle a large volume of technical and academic documents from Japan. Despite her consistently professional and diligent performance, her fluency in Japanese and familiarity with Japanese culture often made her the subject of gossip among her colleagues. In the broader social context, influenced by historical background, many Chinese people held a deep distrust of Japan. Any connection to Japan could be easily misunderstood as disloyalty or treason. It is worth mentioning that Jin Moyu had been married to the art educator Ma Wanli. In order to protect her husband from being implicated, she resolutely decided to apply for a divorce. Although her husband was initially very confused and strongly opposed, Jin Moyu remained firm in her decision, and eventually, her husband reluctantly agreed to the divorce. After the divorce, Jin Moyu spent nearly 15 long years alone in prison. This period of solitude strengthened her beliefs and made her realize that no matter how the outside world judged her, the most important thing was to stick to her inner choices in the face of adversity. Time passed quickly, and after 15 years of imprisonment, Jin Moyu decided to leave her former hometown and bought a house in Langfang with money she had earned by herself. She began a completely new life under a different identity. Jin Moyu worked hard to sever all ties with her past and memories, choosing to live a peaceful and orderly life. Every morning, she would take a walk to enjoy the fresh air. Afterward, she would go to the market to buy some fresh ingredients, enjoying cooking for herself. Though her dishes were simple, each one was made with care and tasted authentic. In the afternoon, she would work in her small garden, trimming plants and taking care of the flowers. In the evening, she would sit on the veranda in front of her house, quietly reading a book, enjoying the peaceful moments. Although life had become simple, Jin Moyu gradually built connections with her neighbors. She occasionally chatted with them and participated in some community activities. These activities helped her establish basic social relationships and gave her a sense of belonging in the small community. As time passed, Jin Moyu's health began to decline with age. Nevertheless, she remained independent and tried not to cause concern for others. In 2014, Jin Moyu's health deteriorated sharply, and she was admitted to the hospital. In the last few months of her life, she decided to reveal a long-hidden secret. Her sister, Chuan Dao Fangzi, had once been a notorious traitor in history. This revelation shocked many people and changed the public's perception of Jin Moyu. However, for Jin Moyu, this revelation was not for any particular purpose, but rather her final attempt to relieve the heavy burden in her heart after so many years. On May 26, 2014, Jin Moyu passed away from heart disease at the age of 95. Her funeral was simple and low-key, attended only by a few neighbors and friends. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.